What's a job that you just associate with jerks? Paparazzi. The video where Tobey Maguire is trying to pull out of a parking garage but they're blocking him in pretty much sums it up. I forget what actress it was, but she was surrounded by paparazzi and one of those dickheads kept intentionally hitting her arm. And when she finally pushed back, they all started snapping photos like crazy. He was trying to goad her into a reaction to make her look like an asshole. They are the ducking worst. Therese similar footage of Amy Winehouse. In one they were calling her a cunt to get a reaction. There was a photo of her being popped at like 3 a.m., with bleeding feet and her face was damaged. Poor girl just needed help. Edit, spelling. That one where she is bleeding in the early hours because they broke a window to her flat to get her out so they could take pictures. Absolute cunts. Did anyone get arrested for that? Every surgeon I've ever met was either one of the kindest, noblest, most intelligent people on the planet or a ducking sociopath. Surgeon here, for everyone saying yeah I wouldn't mind having an overconfident sociopath work on me, trust me, you do. The cocky surgeons are the ones who take the biggest risks and feel the least amount of empathy when considering the potential consequences. Not to mention they crush the morale of their support team, which can often psych them out at critical moments. My talent comes from years' hard work, not unearned arrogance, and more importantly I am comfortable enough with my own fallibility to double-triple check instead of just rolling the dice. Not controlling your ego is what gets people hurt and makes for a miserable work environment for everyone else around you. It's a shame that surgeons are associated with being jerks, and it's an even bigger shame that most of them deserve it. Your comment reminds me of the gynecologist I worked for who would treat some pelvic prolapses with obliterative surgery. If the patient was postmenopausal, he would routinely fail to check if she was still sexually active, or tell her that sex would be impossible after having removed half of her vagina. I diverted a few ladies, including a couple aged 80+, at the pre-op assessment appointment after establishing that their prolapses weren't bothering them as nearly much as the loss of their sex lives would. Then I would get it in the neck from him later for daring to disagree. Worked for a dozen or so gynes in my career, I'd say about a third were too sociopathic to be safe doing it. I went to a gyno recommended by a coworker for an ablation. He was clinical to the point of off-putting. Butte had Jane. After his assessment and recommendation, in came Jane. Mid-60s, sweet as pie, and explaining that I could still get pregnant, but it would be a bad idea, and get STDs. I said I'm married and my husband had a vasectomy, to which she responded, honey, things change. And went on to tell me about various patients who cheated and got an STD or got divorced then got pregnant from a one-night stand. Jane was awesome. If he had enough self-knowledge to know he needed Jane, he did well. I work in entertainment. Talent agents and managers top the list, then some talent themselves. I took one of those tests that tells what you should do for a living. It said I should be an attorney or an IRS agent, so clearly I am an asshole. As an attorney, we're severely underrepresented in this thread. Someone will hear from my lawyer about this. You just know the lawyer a lawyer hires is going to be a top-tier asshole. I think the lawyer that represents himself is probably the bigger asshole. Televangelists. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Matthew 7:15. Additionally, and when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. Matthew 6:5. Reminds me specifically of this video. I know everyone has seen it already, but the part that always got me is the thing that starts their defense of owning the planes is saying you can't pray on a commercial plane. Like, what? You can't make a spectacle of yourself where everyone can see you on a commercial plane. But you can pray on a plane, bro. According to his account, he gets up from his seat and makes it known that he's about to pray. Yeah, you can't do that, but all that isn't a necessary step in praying. This is something that confused me so much as a church kid. It's not like they don't mention this verse and no one knows it. It's heavily referenced, but then they would get so excited if someone made an obnoxiously public display of faith, like Tim Tebow was the height of religious activism for praying for a game when probably 70% of the other players are some form of Christian, too, and just doing a silent prayer in their heads for every play. It really has to come down to the misinformation campaign Christian political hucksters have run to make evangelical and fundamentalist Christians think they're a small persecuted group when the population is still majority religious and mostly Christian. They interpret secular as anti-religious instead of just deciding that we aren't going to play which faith is best when in mixed company of lots of beliefs. So, they think forcing a captive audience through a loud display of praying is activism for Jesus when the data-driven reality is that you're showing off in front of mostly other forms of Christians and then a minority of other beliefs and non-belief that just get alienated by the experience. The thing I hated when hanging out with the youth group crowd was the performative witnessing. Especially when attached to personal anecdotes. 'Cause what can you do? No one wants to say actually Megan, I don't believe you when you say Christ came and comforted you after you only got a B on your chem final. And I think you're just relishing the attention we're politely giving you, and that's why this story has taken 20 minutes and counting to tell. Car salesman, estate agent, door-to-door sales. Worked in car sales for 2 years. Couldn't get out of it fast enough. I felt like a sleazeball, and I was the most honest salesman on the lot by a country mile. I feel you, man. I used to rent cars at the airport. We literally overcharged and upsold stuff to people just for commission. I hated it. Edit. Same. I used to sell Comcast door to door. Granted, I often helped save people money by switching, but I felt like garbage when I'd occasionally sell TV services to people I assumed couldn't really afford it. Whoever calls the shots at the insurance company, edit. Oh, the irony was just on my way to get CT scan because my doc says I need one and was called and told it was denied. Here we go again. Glad I've been paying these huge premiums for 20 years. Sis-in-law had her appendix burst while she was out of town. Insurance is refusing to cover it because she didn't go to one of the preferred doctors. There were of course no preferred doctors in the area, and it's the last thing on your mind when you're in that much pain. I'd argue a burst appendix is life-threatening. Not a medical expert, but I'm pretty sure when it's life-threatening, insurance is supposed to step in and act like where you went was in network no matter what. Of course they'll probably argue it wasn't life-threatening. You should have spent hours driving back to your town or bought a plane ticket and ruined the rest of your life with irreversible damage, but you would have lived. Hopefully you can get fair coverage from the service you pay for. MLMS on Facebook. Girl I haven't talked to since high school. Hey girl. Long time no talk. Guess how I've been losing weight? You should try this product too. Like ya. Okay, thanks. My favorite was, hey, I'm not sure we've ever spoken, but I got your name off this shirt from the swim club we were both in when we were 10. Wanna join my company that explains obvious pyramid scheme with no actual job or sales tactic to make the money? That's the day I cracked down on my Facebook settings. Life coach burnt out douche wannabe social media influencer. Yes. I know so many people who don't have their shit together but think they'll do a fantastic job telling others how to get their shit together. Therese, always a Bernice or Linda in our who's in everybody's business but their own. I see your Bernice and Linda, and raise you a Brenda. Head chef. I made it to sous before leaving traditional kitchen work. They're all ducking miserable unless they own the place and are so rich they can just pay someone else to do the work. The executive chef at my last gig, owner, liked to show up to manager meetings in a car that costs $200,000. I couldn't convince the people in charge of payroll that the reason we couldn't find and retain decent prep cooks was the fact that they paid minimum wage. Also finance brothers, they're all douchebags. I would say call center supervisors, but they are snakes in the grass and it's unfair to jerks to be compared to snakes in the grass. Any job where you can steal customers from your colleague. Salespeople can be one. Third-party recruiters. False charm, constant lies, ghosting people, spamming, terrible attention spans and an inability to simply read a darn resume to see what people actually do rather than just one keyword. Hey, are you an engineer or artist? We have a role for you. Okay buddy, way to narrow things down. This comes from personal experience. Restaurant managers. Anyone that has worked in the restaurant industry knows just how much of a prick your managers can be. The worst is when the owner puts their kid in charge. Worked in a deli at a grocery store where mommy and daddy's 2 kids worked there. Both of them had a history of drug abuse, but the daughter had a significantly better attitude than the son. He had the audacity to say I should be wearing my paper hat and my tie should be tighter and shirt tucked in on my break. I looked at him, told him to shove it, and he said, "Do you even know who I am?" I laughed at him, and told him if he was intelligent enough to have a say, then they would have given him a supervisor position. He tried to give me a speech on my break, so I definitely told him I was going to be taking a longer break on account of him taking it up with his douchebaggery. Don't let those people walk all over you. Mommy and daddy aren't going to keep them in charge if they run off all of the employees. Do you even know who I am? This always cracks me up. If you ever need to actually say this, it's not going to work. My father will hear about this.